And good morning, everyone. It is Thursday. It is October 1st of 2020. This day will never happen again. I got to tell you just an anecdote first before we get started to introduce our two wonderful guests that we have with us, actually our co-host and a guest. But when I was about what would have been like 63 or so, I was 12 or 13 years old, and I was talking with my mother, who was born in 1916. And we were calculating how old everyone would be when it became the turn of the century in 2000, of which I would be 49, by the way, at that time. And I remember my mother saying, I will never live to see the year 2000. Well, she not only lived to see 2000, but 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, and even 2005. So to me, that was just a milestone that was so far ahead in the world. And now we're at 2020, and we're looking back at, young kids that are now 20 years old have no memory of what some of us went through when it became the year 2000 and the change of the millennium. And who would have believed that in about 2014 and then again in 18, that this product that we grew up as being totally illegal and bad for you became one of the most wonderful things in the universe. And here we are. Veronica jumped into it. I jumped into it. It's called Hemp. And that's what our show is about today. It's called Chat CANNA. And my name is John Reitmeier. The person immediately to my, I don't know if it's left or right. I don't know how to do that on the screen. This person here is Veronica Michael. She's from Prairie Products down in Fargo, North Dakota. I used to have my Fargo, North Dakota ring. I used to have a decoder ring. You guys aren't old enough to remember that, are you? Do you remember that? You don't remember that? There was a game called Fargo North Decoder, and you decoded things, and you had a decoder ring. You guys are so young. See, you're just so young.
I think we need to bring that back.
Anyway, I will let you introduce. Oh, you got to put your camera down. Put your camera down a little bit because you're falling up. There we go. And introduce our guest today.
Yes, I'm Veronica, and with me is Mackenzie Kuba. Mac is our production manager here at Prairie Products. So she works with
Mac.
Yeah. So Mac, do you want to say a little bit about yourself?
My name is Mackenzie Kuba. I was born and raised in Fargo, North Dakota. I went to NDSU for visual arts, and after college, just did a lot of jobs either in fabrication or production. So just kind of had a mind for equipment and processing and how processes worked. So when this project came up, Veronica asked me if I was interested, and I'm like, hey, it's a new set of processes, but I'm happy to give it a shot.
So what did you think the first day you heard the word hemp? What was your thought?
I was very open to it. I mean, as far as I grew up around a number of people who had explained to me the
other side. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Just as far as, I grew up around a bunch of history buffs that, explained to me that hemp used to be a cornerstone, as far as a cornerstone of agriculture in North Dakota before the scare of hemp and cannabis in general happened. So I was really fascinated by the versatility of it as a crop, in the fact that you can make just about anything out of it.
Wonderful. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And we want to find out what you do. I mean, what happens when it comes in? Veronica told us some this week about how the farmer, of course, harvests it and puts it into big totes, and you got to get it into a workable state to go through the magic machine. So
actually, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to have Mackenzie talk today is we spent some time visiting NDSU's pilot program a couple times now, because there's a lot that does happen between leaving the farm and getting it to us really ready for our machines. One of the challenges that I talked about was really getting it milled to the really particle size we'd like to have it. And for all growers of hemp that are new, they're trying to use maybe something that's already on the farm to do that work, or make some adjustments to some machinery. So we've really had growers bring our hemp to us with well, they're a hemp to us that's, sometimes milled to our specification, but there's been some challenges where they weren't able to do it. So we went over to NDSU and checked out two different milling machines.
Yep.
Do you want to say a little bit more about them, Matt?
So when we were over there, I think the one that we were working with was a hammer mill that seemed to work best on, achieving that particle size. It was kind of playing around with the speed of the mill, just so being that we're dealing with such a light material, just so it's not flying out of the hopper backwards at you.
True. I know it. That's true. What you're saying. That's exactly
yeah. I mean, you're
right.
covered in your work by the end of it. Exactly.
But a hammer mill is exactly like what they're saying. It's just this. It's
Yep.
just two hammers, basically that are on a big enough wheel at because hammer mills originally were very underpowered, and so that there was a reciprocal wheel that had enough centrifugal force to kind of like keep it going with the underpowered whatever engine it was that was doing it to keep those hammering. Yep. That's how oats went into our bin. We had hogs here on the farm when I was a child, and I should go get a picture of it. There's a hammer mill out in the trees here. I don't know if it's rusted inside or not, but I'd love to tear it apart. But there's the hammer mill, and it had two parts to it: the hammer part, and then a fan that blew the oats up in and through a little door into the oat room, where that was mixed with the milk that we didn't sell from the cows, and that was the food for the pigs. So that's hammer mills have been on farms probably as long as farms have been in America. So
we'll drag that hammer mill out of the shrub, the tree line, because we need to take a look at it. I mean, what we found when we were at NDSU is that we used a few different screens actually, and almost the best result was without a screen.
Mm-hmm. Because the hemp itself, I mean, by the time the hemp gets to us, it's been dried out enough that it'll break down pretty easily. Like with some of the biomass that we've had come in that hasn't been milled, you're pretty much taking your hands and going like this into the bag to break everything up enough that we can pack our baskets a little bit more consistently, because that's the most important part about, at least from my perspective, processing it is as far as just being able to be consistent when processing it, because it's like, when you look at the material in a tea bag, it's all ground down to a consistency so that you're getting as much absorption as possible and getting as much out of the material as possible. And it's very much the same thing with ethanol extraction, is that you really want to get the most bang for your buck as far as being able to really let that ethanol immerse into your material, but also being able to pack those baskets so you're reaching the weight that you want to, and being able to do that consistently.
And what we say, of course, is we don't want to leave money on the table. So you want to get all the trichomes, the little, they almost look like little tiny pustule mushrooms that grow out of the side of the bud. It's like a little thing that pushes out, and it's kind of oily, and it's kind of got a skin on it. And then as it dries, it's a little crystalline form. Would I be describing that right?
Yep.
And it's all, there's thousands, millions of them hanging on all of these buds. And that's what the growers, of course, the genetic guys, are trying to make a plant that has more and more and more and more of those things on any one bud, so that the farmer's bringing you the most of those that they can. And then, but you, of course, if you stack just the buds in there where the buds were together, the ethanol wouldn't reach. And that would be leaving money on the table as it went through. So you want it broken up so that ethanol can over, under, around, and through. If you remember,
exactly.
That's a cigarette commercial from the 50s.
Well, I remember one of the things that I said last time too, John, is, we pray for a day where there's a grading scale in hemp, because we couldn't just take the bud. As extractors, if we were only taking the highest potency of every plant a farmer had, we would not be we wouldn't be maintaining that potency level we need to, right? The tests wouldn't come back properly. A homogenized sample of the plant is really much more ideal because it's going to be some of the bud, but a little bit of the sugar leaf, a little bit of something else, instead of just all of that premium material at the top.
Got it. Got it. Now, did you try it all or play with burr grinders? A burr grinder, I don't know if you know, but all the sugar beet factories, that's what they use after they do the chopping, and they kind of make coleslaw out of a sugar beet first. Then that coleslaw goes through a burr grinder. I was flying from Amsterdam to Minneapolis and happened to be lucky to be in the front cabin. The guy next to me, you always get chatting with the people in the seat next to you. And he says, well, I make burr grinders, and you probably don't know what those are. And I said, well, I think that we use them in our sugar factories. And he looked at me like, how would you what is this? And he says, well, I sold all of the burr grinders to American Crystal Sugar. And I said, well, my family's fourth generation provider of sugar to Crystal Sugar. And so we had this 8-hour conversation as the plane went across the pond. And of course, a burr grinder they're all different sizes, but it's imagine your hand, but then it would be a kind of a ball of carbon steel with little things drilled into it. And that just kind of goes brrr. I mean, that's why it's called a burr grinder. It kind of goes brrr. Did you do any testing? We tried that here on a really small scale, and it kind of turned everything into mush for us.
Right, exactly. That kind of a grinder, we think, I mean, kind of what we were saying before with on the bud, all those really delicate little pieces, that just kind of mashes them up in a way that's not helpful for us.
Yeah.
Because we want to capture that. We don't want it to blow away up into our faces. We don't want it to be ground down. I think of it sometimes with the burr grinder when you're grinding like coffee and you let it go
that's
too
what we
long,
bought. We bought
right?
a coffee grinder. We said,
yeah.
oh, we got this figured out. We'll do this. Because we just, in our research and development, we want a half a coffee cup full of a sample. We work with, different than you guys are. You talking hundreds of pounds. We talking half a coffee cup sizes. So we thought, well, a little coffee grinder would be the perfect thing. Lasted 12 hours, and then it was in the kitchen grinding coffee as God intended it to.
Exactly.
God
Exactly.
a coffee.
It can get a little bit too fine, right? And even in our coffee grinders, you end up with around, I have a Kerr, I love them. I've had many, but then you end up with that residue around the blade and around almost that oily substance. It's leaving something. For us, grinding to that would be too much. That's leaving what we want to extract out. So, and it's almost heating it up in a way that's a little bit too intense. But
probably it was, that's right. It was probably hot on the grinder itself. So good. Okay. Well, so burr grinders are out.
But I think that there is a solution out there. We were excited to continue to visit with some faculty at NDSU because post-harvest production is what they do. One of the wonderful things that a land-grant college can talk and research about and really think about new development. So when we are able to really not only talk to them about our challenges that we're experiencing, the challenges our growers are experiencing, but then go and do the work of grinding with them and then some of their graduate assistants, I think that's going to help us find workable solutions or new equipment and new innovation here in the Valley. What do you think?
And that's,
Yeah, as far as, and like you guys were talking about the whole heating, as far as grinding it up enough, but avoiding the, over grinding and heating it up and really, trying to get it down to that particle size that you need, but without losing, like, obviously the little delicate parts of the equation that are necessary, the stuff that we want to be pulling out in the extraction process. So it's kind of finding that Goldilocks sort of grinding technique that, just enough, but not too much.
Just enough. Yeah.
The price too is like a Goldilocks, right? Because some of the prices out there for grinders, just to give our listeners some concepts of prices. These grinders can be $40,000 for an individual grower to make an investment of that scale is unbelievable. If you think of buying something for grinding, buying something to dry your hemp, you're putting a lot of investment. When John mentioned American Crystal Sugar, it goes back to the idea of co-oping and bringing growers together to see if some machinery and some storage should be done together. That could be a whole nother conversation, but these are challenges that maybe are best solved in a group.
Absolutely, because a guy that has a couple, 3, 5 acres of hemp needs the grinder or the chopper or whatever for what, a day? I mean, he should be able to put all his stuff through it in a day. Well,
Yeah.
Tuesday's my day, Wednesday's your day, Thursday's your day. I mean,
Exactly.
and then it sits the whole rest of the year.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, I mean, we have some industries too in Minnesota and North Dakota, like Roto Chopper. There's a lot of industries that have innovated. And actually, we do have the bags. If you guys would like to see samples of what we ground to show you some of the different specs, and I can show you a sample from Roto Chopper's grinding too.
wonderful.
Is that okay? Okay.
Of course.
I'll be right back, Matt.
Get some samples and we'll just keep on talking here. And so then when you say a basket, is this like a deep fryer basket, like to do French fries, or what scale are we talking about here?
It's a similar idea. So the extractor that we use has they're just two big stainless steel columns that we put our baskets in. What the baskets are just these big cylindrical tubes that are about 36 to 38 inches tall. So we're just packing all the material into those, and they're probably about that big around. So it's about 6 inches. And they're made out of a perfect. This is what the baskets look like.
So it's a fine mesh then on the basket.
It's just a fine stainless steel weave. Very much, it's very similar to the same weave as like a T-ball. And so the ethanol can move freely through it, and it just helps you contain the biomass within our extraction within our extractor.
Here is one of the samples that we ground at NDSU. So you can see this material is a little bit fine. Can you see that, John?
Yeah. Can you squeeze it? Can you squeeze the bag a little bit?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's a little fine in the way it came out. The grinder had a really small hopper too, so it was one of those things that we knew would take a lot of time. We'd have to make some adjustments to the hopper, but we at least wanted to try it because it works really great with other grains. This one we really liked. Nice job, Matt.
Oh, that's a better chop. You think that's a better chop?
Very much.
Okay.
Don't you think, Matt?
Yeah, because as fine as these baskets are, if you grind it down to too fine of a consistency, you will have some of the biomass coming through the basket. That then just leads to some filtering, problem solving, kind of down the way in your system.
Sure.
So this is really this is as fine as you need it.
Okay. And then so these two columns of baskets, about how many pounds of stuff go in there?
I think around 7.5
is one batch. That's a batch.
Is in each basket.
So 15 pounds is about a batch then.
Yep.
Okay.
That's
and then from the time you close the door on that to the time you have to close the door on the next batch, about how long does that take?
It's about a 15-minute turnaround.
Oh, so okay. So from the one batch to the next is about 15 minutes as it's happening through the system, and you get out on the other end a combination of everything we wanted to take out of the stuff and the alcohol.
Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, the soak time, and that's the other reason another reason why the grinding is so important in this is that we're doing a cryoethanol process. So the whole idea is getting your ethanol chilled down to your goal temperature, and then introducing that into your biomass, and then pulling it off of your biomass before it warms up so much that you're pulling stuff off of it that you don't want. So the soak time is 15 minutes. And then it's just a matter of you're just kind of trying to pull as much ethanol back off of that, using nitrogen to just kind of push it through the system.
Nitrogen gas or nitrogen liquid?
Nitrogen gas.
Nitrogen gas. Okay.
Yep. So it's it's really a combination of vacuum and nitrogen that we're just pushing it through the system. So we'll pull vacuum on the material columns in our collection tank at the beginning of the process. So that will help us, pull the ethanol where we want it and when we want it there. And then we just kind of do the rest with a little bit of nitrogen gas to push it through, or to finish pushing it through the system.
And then you lose that nitrogen. You have to be buying nitrogen all of the time. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
So but the alcohol can be salvaged. You do that later. We talked about a still. And do you have to put a moonshine cap on then when you're doing the still, or is it a new and modern kind of a thing? I mean, there's no
moonshine. We are doing is we're constantly checking the proof.
Of course.
So we're constantly checking the proof, because if it drops too low, it's not.
It's less effective.
It's not effective for us.
Okay. So we got to keep the proof up there. And then, but then when you separate the alcohol from the product, that's the throwaway, not throwaway, but that's not the stuff you want. Wait a minute. No, that is the stuff you want. Mm-hmm. What happens to what's left in the basket?
So when at the end of the process, I open the extractor back up, pull these out, and then the contents of the basket, still has some residual ethanol. Yeah. So it's still pre-soaked. I mean, we wring it out as much as we can using the nitrogen. But after that, the baskets get brought to our screw press, which is I guess the best comparison that I know as somebody who went through art school is a clay pug mill.
Yeah.
So it's a big auger that
it works this way. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
And then there's just a manifold that it runs through and then there's a pressurized cap on the end of it. So there's kind of some constant resistance on the material as it's going through the system. And once it hits that resistance, it basically squeezes all of that residual ethanol back out of that material. So we're then able to take and then collect all of that, strain it, because there is a fair amount of particulate in it.
Is there good stuff in that yet?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That we not only collect all the extract that's ever left, but all the ethanol too. So that we put it back in their batch, the ethanol goes back into our stream.
And so it can come around again and be used again.
Mm-hmm.
So now what happens to the stuff that has been through the screw press and it's kind of dry and chunky? Would that be a word?
It's actually there's still a slight amount of like residual ethanol in it, but not a lot.
Okay.
That all goes into bags, and it's actually almost a hemp powder at that point, because it really gets ground down.
It's really pretty actually. And important to know about that product is it still contains about 1% the cannabinoids. There's a little bit of the cannabinoids we just aren't able to pull.
Sure.
My last test though was below 1%. It was 0.6, 2, I think. But we're always kind of testing that, because Mac wants to know that she's pulling as much of the cannabinoids out of every extract as she can, which has we have definitely improved over time and done great work. But there's a little bit of the cannabinoid left. The product is also really rich in nitrogen, and we think has some application in other ways. So we have talked with a lot of researchers and others about everything from what we believe are future garden applications as an additive for treats or feed for animals. There might be some opportunity earlier, in the farm waste area. Is that for bedding? So we hope that the USDA hemp feed project will continue to do their work so that we can see good options for our other material.
Yeah. So then nothing is really thrown away, because the good stuff that you take out, of course, then becomes the oil that goes on to be processed into all the different CBD things that we've heard about that are available for sale. And you make some of those yourself. The alcohol is recaptured. The nitrogen is lost. That's one thing you have to keep buying. And then this other stuff can be used maybe for bedding, maybe maybe for animal feed, or as part of animal feed, a small part of it, but in there. When I hear the word nitrogen, then can it be put back on the field as just something to incorporate into the soil for next year?
Can we talk about our?
Yeah, so we have been doing our own home tests to see what would happen if we put it on top of the soil. And this is just, stuff that we've done in our own private gardens. But I do want to say we've reached out to a partner because and a research agency, because we feel like this is something we want to pursue. So with both of us, we're happy gardeners, and decided to do it in a couple ways. So one was a topical application, almost like mulch, in some perennials in my yard. And then the other application was actually taking it and mixing it into the first maybe 6, almost foot of topsoil, and really blending that together, and seeing what happened. What happened was unbelievable growth and a huge garden. Not only, and this is just me talking, as a human, but not only did I see a huge growth in some of the products that I put it in, but they fruited a lot. Like they produced a lot of fruit. So we did do some some testing of what is in that hemp byproduct. That's why we know there's some sugars, there's some nitrogen,
A lot of
fat. So, but Max, we want to talk about your experience?
Yeah. So I've got, I have a little garden project with a friend of mine, and we've got just 3 4x8 raised beds. And this spring, when me and Veronica were talking about this kind of experimental application for it, it was like, okay, well, if I fry out, if I kill all my tomatoes, it's just my tomatoes, not a big deal. So we just kind of equal parts in each of these beds, probably threw about 50 pounds in, and turned it into the topsoil when just kind of getting the beds ready for the spring. And I've got everything from, we grow everything from lettuce to tomatoes, peppers, tomatillos, zucchini, and everything not only really grew really fast and was a nice deep green, but like Veronica was saying, everything fruited out kind of beyond expectations.
So a little bit like the Miracle Grow commercials. And is that what you're telling me, that it kind of reacted that way?
It did.
It did.
Yeah.
Wow.
It really did.
Wow.
I've got tomatillo plants that are 8 feet tall right now. So
my deck is covered in tomatoes in a way that is actually laughable. I have one tomato plant that is taken over. I think it's probably as big as my dining room table.
Well,
I'm going to move in pretty soon.
I know, really, it's kind of scary.
Of course, you didn't do any A/B comparisons. You didn't do half of the bed and not half the bed. So now we got to start doing some A/B stuff. But wow, I mean, just to have this, knowing that, for instance, first of all, you didn't kill anything. You didn't kill anything off, A, and that B, you got some incredible results. Is just incredible news. We got to talk to our friends up in Botno now, and at the is it a university branch up there? Is it what's its official name?
So it's they're connected to Minot State.
Minot State, yeah. So I mean, because they are gonna, they're going to be way interested in that, because of course their big thing is they're doing things in a high tunnel and then the exact same thing outside the high tunnel, to see how they're doing that A/B stuff around the state. So if with your results of that, I think they would want to start jumping on that. And of course, when we can get some results back that the state has put their stamp on, the university system, then, it's easier to talk to people about it rather than saying, well, this is my own personal experience, because everybody can point a finger at that and say, yeah, sure, but you're the salesman. But when it comes through the university system, we have a much higher reality factor. Whatever you call it. But wow, with that kind of starting off thing, I can't wait till next year. So that's really good. And I guess the only question is, I have not seen a basket of tomatoes on my porch. I just want to.
Well, I'm surprised because everyone else has.
The other really as far as like the one of the things that was really interesting for us, as far as this seeming like a really natural application for this, is that all of this material is tested on the front end for pesticides and heavy metals. So we know ahead of time that this is all clean material. So as far as it being a clean nitrogen additive, and at the end of, like I was talking about, as far as the consistency of it, it's very comparable to peat moss, or like peat mix. So it also, not only does it seem to make the plants really happy, it also seems to loosen the soil up a little bit too, or kind of lighten the soil up a little bit. So as far as, it certainly looking like it has the potential to be a real, something that people can just throw back on their fields. It kind of seemed like a no-brainer after seeing how plants responded to it. And actually, one of the girls who work in our office had a transplant that was having a really hard time, and we sent her home with some of it, and she put it around the plant, and it came back to life in a matter of days. So even acting as kind of a bit of a rescue remedy application for it as well. I'm really curious to see what a university would find as far as a plant food.
Fantastic. Well, this is going to get out. People are going to watch it, and it's going to be interesting to see what feedback we get, because I think people are going to say, I would like 5 pounds of that for next year, or maybe even for some of my wintertime stuff. And I was just thinking, as the ethanol goes through this, that should pretty much wipe out fungus, mold, if there was any bugs, any kind of things, it should come out as a pretty clean product. You're not moving any kind of bad things from one farm or field to another. No nematodes should be in there. Nothing that just flew in and landed on the plants. They should all be just wiped out. I mean, nobody can hold your breath for 15 minutes in a 40-degree below zero alcohol bath.
Yeah, that would be one drunk nematode.
Oh, that's what I mean. So that's just really it's almost like sanitized for your protection when you get into a motel room. I mean, it's really interesting stuff. This has been a wonderful show. Every day that I participate in a Chat CANNA episode, I am learning, and I want to thank you both so much. I mean, my brain's going to explode one day. It really is. I didn't know. And we're still just touching the surface. I mean, we probably should have called this the CANNA Academy or something, because every day is a learning time, and there is yet so much to learn from my little tiny scale where we're doing research and development here, to you guys that are full-blown processors, but in the 15 pounds repeated over and over and over again, to when we talk to Mr. Adams, and he wants to do CBD on an 80 acres at a time. He doesn't want people out in the field harvesting it. He doesn't want it ever touched by human hands. Imagine what kind of processing you'd need to have to be on his delivery end, that he envisions someday. So this is all just different layers of what's happening out here in the hemp industry, and it is so exciting to be a part of it. So thank you, guys. Final words, tell folks a little bit about Prairie Products and what kind of stuff they can get from you and where they can get it.
Well, folks, you can go to prairieproductsnd.com and check out our retail products. We have variety of things. One of the things that we're really proud of is our recovery cream because it's a THC formulated product. We also have a THC chewable tablet. Some products that are also chewable, something even for your pets, and something for daytime called our Focus and Energy, which has a little bit of ginger in it. So check us out. We're also going to be in Minot this weekend at the fair there for Souls of Spirit.
All righty. Thank you so much, guys. Of course, yeah. Monday we'll have a Have You Heard? Bring you some news. Tuesday, Margaret Wyatowski from the Minnesota State Hemp. She's the pivot person has been since day one. It's going to be exciting. Thursday, Pat Seitz has a giant hemp. Everything you need to order for your hemp operation from St. Paul. The next week we've got more guests scheduled, and I'm going to talk to Pat about you guys' product here. He may say start putting it in 5-pound bags and shipping it on down to me. So this is just it's wonderful how we're making connections and putting people together. Thank you, guys. That's it for Chat Canna for this Thursday. It's October the 1st. I don't know where the months have gone this year. Stay in, stay safe when you can. My personal mantra is wear a mask, please, because I am in 2 different risk groups. So stay 6 feet away and wear your mask for me, please. We'll see you all on Monday. Have a great weekend. Bye, you guys.